Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Essay and Happy New Year, and today I'm going to talk about the express entry. Now, I recently moved to Canada and I've had a lot of people ask me questions about my immigration, and I thought I should share it with you and give you a step-by-step procedure on how to go about the express entry. If you've never heard about express entry, or you've heard about it and you've wondered, oh, how is it done? Everything is going to seem novel, so I'm going to try to be as explicit as possible to you how it can be done, because you can do it on your own. I did it on my own. I didn't need the help of anybody or any professional. All the information you want is online, and you can easily access it. First of all, what is express entry? Express entry is a system of immigration that is run in Canada right now, and it allows for professionals to be able to come into Canada with your permanent residence. Now, your permanent residence is what they usually call, like in the US, your green card. So you are able to stay in Canada and work in Canada, and you're entitled to whatever privilege a citizen is entitled to. Now, I'm going to teach you how to do this, because you can leave your home country with your permanent residence. Step 1. How express entry works. Express entry is an online system that we use to manage applications for permanent residence from skilled workers. The key word here is skilled workers, all right? So, 1, you have to find out if you're eligible. Not everybody is eligible. It basically has to be skilled workers and so on and so forth. So at the end of this video, I'm going to fill out a form, which is a simulation tool that tells you your eligibility. Now, how does this work? We have what we call the comprehensive ranking system. Now, the comprehensive ranking system basically awards certain scores to certain criteria and determines your eligibility in the pool. Now, when you find out that you're eligible, you get your document ready. What are the documents you need? First of all, we have the pre-ITA documents. ITA simply means invitation to apply. I'm going to tell you more about that after this. So your pre-ITA documents is your educational credential assessment. You have to get your degree assessed. Now, how do you do this? There are different bodies that you use for your assessments. You have the IQS, you have the West body, and a few others. We're going to talk about that in my subsequent video. Now, after that, you have to write the English speaking test, International English Speaking Test, IELTS. Now, the IELTS also helps to assess your level. So depending on your grade, your CLB score, it also determines what your score will be on the comprehensive ranking tool. Now, when you have these 2 documents ready, then you are eligible to provide your profile. Then you are eligible to fill up your form. So the step 3 would be submitting your profile. After you have submitted your profile, you check your score. Your score would range between 100 to 1,200, depending. I'm going to go over to how the grading is done. Now, when you submit your profile, you are now in the pool. In the pool being that people that are waiting for the Canadian government to invite them to apply. Now, how is this invitation done? Bi-weekly or other weeks, because of late in 2019, apparently most of the draws weren't done bi-weekly. So typically bi-weekly they have what they call the express entry draws. Now, this is a random selection. By random, I think it's computerized depending on the number of people in the pool, the scores, and then there's a minimum score. People with the minimum score would receive what we call the invitation to apply. After that, after you receive the invitation to apply, you go through submitting all the documents you said you had, your proof of fund and all that. My subsequent videos, I'm going to talk about post-ITA. Now, today we are focusing on pre-ITA. That's the preliminary before the invitation to apply. So you fill up all that and then you submit your profile, and then you wait for the period of time, and they look through your documents, and if everything maps out correctly, they send you a passport request. So yeah, But today I'm just going to talk about the federal skilled worker. So your minimum requirements: you must have a skilled work experience. Say if you're an accountant and you want to apply for the federal skilled worker program, you must be able to prove that you have that experience of whatever job occupation you desire. You must have your language ability, which is very vital. That's the IELTS test. You must also note here that Canada basically is a English and French speaking country, so both ones. If you happen to speak English and French, you are on the way to Canada, because it's a very good advantage. So you have to take the approved English speaking test, which is IELTS or the French test, and then your education. These are all the vital things you need before your application. You have to do the educational credential assessment. Then another thing is a proof of fund. Now, proof of funds basically doesn't mean that you're spending the money. All they just want to see is that you have a certain minimum amount of money in your account that is owned by you before you can come in. So when you're submitting your documents, you have to submit that I have this money, I can take care of myself for a period of time till I'm able to stabilize in Canada, because nobody wants a liability. Then your admissibility and where you can live in Canada and all that. Comprehensive ranking system criteria. Now this is the major part. I'm going to go through it again. Remember, we talked about the criteria, which is the age, the level of education. So I'm going to point out to you right now are the different scores that are attributed to the different factors. Now for age. If you look at this table, you see that you have points per factor with a spouse or common law partner, without a spouse or common law partner. Cumulatively, like I said earlier, there's a total of 1,200 scores. We have the scores divided into two. We have the core human capital score and additional points. The core human capital score is a total of 600. That's the highest anybody can get if you achieve all the factors. And additional scores come handy when you want to add up. When I scroll down, I'm going to show us the additional scores. So for the age, with a spouse, if you're say below 30, you have 100. 100 is the maximum, and then without a spouse you score 110. Your level of education, the highest you can score with a spouse is 140, without a spouse 150, and probably your PhD. These are the highest levels. Remember, these are the highest levels, and so in essence, your scores will rank lower or on this depending on your qualifications. Your official language proficiency, 150, 160. Now let's say something. You notice that the language proficiency attributes the most scores on the table. That's why it's necessary that when you attempt to do this, you try as much as possible to prepare properly for your IELTS exams, because that seems to be one of the major stumbling block most people face right now. Another thing we should point out here is with a spouse, it seems that it reduces your score by 10, but don't feel terrible, because it doesn't necessarily do that. I'm going to show when we go down, you find out that whatever scores that are lacking here, it eventually is added up when you your spouse also takes the same process as you do. Okay, so when you're single, it's only fair that you're alone, so they give you the maximum scores. But when you have a spouse, your spouse adds to your scores. You can see here that spouse or common law partners factors. So level of education, assuming your level of education you were to get 150, right? Let's say you have a PhD, all right, and your spouse also has the same. So automatically the 10 points is added to you, so you're not losing anything. Official language proficiency, you see here that the spouse even adds an extra 20 points, which gives you a higher chance. So with a spouse, assuming you have the best IELTS score, say you have a CLB factor of 10, and then your spouse adds up, and then automatically you are even stand a higher chance than a single person. So yeah, skills transferability factor. Now this skill transferability factor basically has to do with your official language proficiency and post-secondary degree, like if you have a bachelor's degree, master's, and all. So the maximum points you can score is 50. Foreign work experience. Now foreign work experience basically is the experience you have in whatever occupation you have. So say you're a lawyer or a banker or whatever, the foreign work experience, say you have 3 years, 4 years and above, this is the maximum points you can score from working foreign work experience. Now certificate of qualification. Now these are for people in trade occupations. All right, you can get an extra 50 points for a certificate of qualification. So you see here that core human capital, spouse or common law partner, transferability factors all give a maximum point of 600. Now additional points, these points are added to the human core capital. So if you have a brother or sister living in Canada who is a citizen or a permanent resident, automatically that gives you 15 points. If you have your IELTS, which is your English speaking ability, and also your French language skills. So even if you are just say mediocre in French, you just know the basics and you want to try and up your score, it's necessary that you try the French language test. Now, if you have done a post-secondary, say you have a diploma in Canada, some people may be in Canada or have come to Canada already, it adds 30 points to you. Now, if you have an arranged employment, I know a few people that have stayed back home and gotten employments here, that automatically gives you 200 points. Now, the highest of them all is a provincial nomination. Say, for instance, Manitoba. You have a nomination from Alberta, get 600 points extra. Automatically, it qualifies you for your express entry. Now, points breakdown by section. You see here that if you are 20 to 29 years of age, you have the maximum score. But the minute you get to 30, these are the times when people start saying, oh my God, I hate my birthdays and all that. Especially when you're in the pool and you're trying to get your score up and you clock a new age, you lose 5 points. So you see, the minute you get to 30, you drop by 5, 31, you go down by 5, 5, 5, like that. So if you're young, trust me, this is the best time, because the older you get, the harder it becomes. Level of education. This is the breakdown of the level of education. So you see here that when you have a first degree from your university, you just have 84 points with a common law partner or with your spouse, or without 90. Remember, the spouse also adds up. So despite the fact that you may have a very high degree and you feel, oh, if I was alone, I would have had the highest score, but encourage your spouse to also do his or her evaluation assessments or credential assessments. See that the highest score goes to PhD, which is remember our benchmark was 140, 150. But if you have a master's degree or you have a professional degree, now I'm going to point this one out because most people seem confused about this part. If you have a professional degree, say you have a degree in medicine, veterinary medicine, optometry, law, and so on and so forth, these are considered professional degrees. So they are evaluated, they attribute the same score that a master's degree would have. So if you have an accounting degree and say you have a master's in accounting, automatically it puts you on this benchmark. All right, but it's also important that you evaluate your degree with the right body that gives you the right equivalency. You see a spouse or common law partner's official proficiency, so maximum 20 points. So for each section your spouse can add. As trust me, you might think, oh, just 3 points, 4 points. It means a lot. Whatever points your spouse can add to increase your score on the pool, it's a lot of points. All right. Now, Canadian work experience. I assume that most people trying to immigrate to Canada probably don't have the Canadian work experience. But if you happen to be in Canada and you're here on work permit, or you're here on student visa, and you happen to have a Canadian work experience, all this adds up to transferability factors. Now, remember, these are just the breakdown of all the points depending on the level. So if you say you have a university degree, also point out that your IELTS, depending on each of these, which is the reading, speaking, listening, they all attribute their different scores, of which listening attributes most. So if you're attempting to write IELTS, please focus on getting the highest score you can on listening and reading. Those two are very vital. Not to undermine the other two, but when I do the simulation, you see what I mean. And all these links are going to be attached to this video. This is just a breakdown of everything. Foreign work experience, I believe, or your work experience to count. So for 3 or more years, you see, with official language proficiency. So your language proficiency matters a lot in giving you the highest points. So if you have a CLB less than 7, it affects your score on work proficiency and on foreign work experience, skill transferability. If you have a CLB of above 9 for all your languages, automatically everything just goes up. So your language proficiency affects all your grading. So it's necessary that you focus hard on getting a CLB of above 8.0 at least. So I'm going to quickly go over to simulating your form. All right, checking your eligibility. So I'm going to use this link here to check your eligibility to find out if you are eligible. Okay, so I'm going to use myself for example. I'm going to use my qualification. I'm a lawyer by profession, so I'm going to use my qualification. I'm going to use my age, and I'm going to use my marital status. So what is your marital status? I'm presently never married and single. How old are you? Oh, I'm 28. What is your level of education? Enter the highest level of education for which you earned a Canadian degree. Now you notice here that it says earned a Canadian degree or had an educational credential assessment. So I will assume that I have had an educational credential assessment, and considering that I'm a lawyer, I'm not going to go with a bachelor's degree. I'm going to go with master's degree or professional degree. Remember what I said about being a professional? So, but if you don't have, if you're not a professional or you don't have a master's degree, please choose the option of your bachelor's degree. If you have more than one certificate, you can go with this one as well. But you'd have to evaluate the extra certificates you have. Have you earned a Canadian degree, diploma, or certificate? No. Official languages. Canada's official languages are English and French. You need to submit your language test. Are your test results less than 2 years old? The maximum period you can use your IELTS test is 2 years. So are they less than 2 years? Yes, they have to be less than 2 years, otherwise they're expired. Which language test did you take? I took IELTS test scores. Now this is the part where you see speaking says 7.5 to 9.0. So between 7.5 to 9.0, you attain the highest mark for speaking. So I'm going to go with that. Remember, I told you listening is very vital. You notice here that listening has 7.5, but doesn't assume to 9.0. You have 8.0, you have 8.5. Now, if you score between 8.5 to 9.0, you get the highest score for listening. That's about 40 marks. Reading, you see here too, reading has the same thing. So I said listening and reading, those two are the vital parts. You have 8.0 to 9.0. So you need to score at least 8.0. It just shows that for you to get the highest, you need to score at least 7.5 in speaking, 8.5 in listening, 8.0 in reading. Writing, you need to score at least 7.5. So When preparing for your IELTS, remember the key things: you need to score at least 7.5 in speaking, 8.5 in listening, 8.0 in reading, and 7.5 in writing. Do you have other language results? Now, this is where if you have a French result, you just say TEF Canada or TCF Canada. I don't even know the French exams because I didn't have to take it. But if you could speak French, please research, do your French exams and add that. But I would say no because I don't have it. Work experience. In the last 10 years, how many years of skilled work experience in Canada do you have? I do not have. Remember, it says in Canada. So I do not have any. None. In the last 10 years, how many total years of foreign skilled work experience do you have? So you coming in as a foreigner, you have experience in your field back home. So I had over 3 years, which gives you the maximum score. Do you have a certificate of qualification from a Canadian province, territory, or federal body? No. Here says these are additional points. Do you have a valid offer supported by a labor market? If you do have, say yes. But right now, since we are simulating, no. Do you have a domination certificate from a province, territory? No. Do you or your spouse or common law partner, if they will come with you, have at least one brother or sister? Remember, this adds 15 points. Note to answer yes. The brother or sister must be 18 years old, related to you or your partner by blood, marriage, common law partnership, or adoption, have a parent in common with you. So in essence, the person has to be your sibling. Your cousin does not count. My auntie does not count. What counts is your blood relative. It has to be your sibling, either by blood or by adoption or by marriage. So assuming you have a step brother or step sister that is Canadian, that also counts. The person is your sibling. So when I did it, I didn't have, so say no. But if you have, please say yes, because that's 15 points. So now I'm going to calculate my score. Now, remember what we said about the core human capital score? This is it. Age 110. I got the highest score because I'm less than 30. Level of education 135. Remember, the highest level of education is 150, but because I had masters, I got the highest in masters. Study in Canada, I have no study in Canada. Official language, I got 136. 136 because I used the highest, right? Second official language, 0, nothing. Canadian work experience, 0. So for the core human capital, I had 381, which is very okay. All right. Level of education, 0. This is for spouse. Because I'm single, the spouse doesn't add anything. Official language proficiency and education. Now, this is the skill transferability part. Because I went with the highest benchmark, remember, I had 50. Foreign work experience, I got 50, which is the highest benchmark. So, comprehensive ranking system formula. So, subcore total and skill transferability, 481. Woohoo! 481, I stand a wonderful chance of coming to Canada because from the last drawers, I think the last one was about 470 or 450 something. I'm not sure. I don't have the record of the last drawers, but I don't think anyone has been as high as 480. So with a score of 481, when I fill in my form and put all this together, I'm able to get this grand total. What next? I get the invitation to apply. So if you're watching this video, please follow the link and try using this tool to see if you're eligible. If you have a spouse, please add the spouse and also go with the same pattern. Use your highest level of education and your spouse's level of education and see what that gives you. All right, thank you. Like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next. Thank you. Have a good day.